Doug Larson here at Mash Elite. We are going to talk today about how to get strong at specific joint angles. For me, to reference myself and to show a couple of examples, I tend to have my biggest sticking point on deadlifts straight off the floor. If I'm lifting and I can break a deadlift from the floor, it's going to go up no problem. Some people have different leverages. I have a very short torso, very long limbs, makes me a good deadlifter. And if I get off the ground, I can lift it no problem. If I'm doing rack pulls, I can probably do rack pulls with like 40% more than I can pull off the floor. I'm much stronger high up, which means if I want to PR my deadlift, for me, it's all about getting stronger off the floor. Because again, if I get off the floor, I'm going to finish the lift no problem. I like to do isometrics as low as possible. These scoops don't go any lower, so for me, with this current setup, if I'm here, I'm about mid-shin, but I can just get to this position, perfect deadlift position. If you're doing isometrics, there's no reason you shouldn't be in an absolute perfect position. I can get here and I can just pull as hard as I can. And I can pull for as short or as long as I like. If in a setup like this, I can't put the scoops or the pins any lower, but I can always just elevate my feet. So if I want to go lower in this position, then I can just throw some plates down. I can throw a couple plates down, and now the bar is just a little bit lower. And then and of course, if I want the bar to be even lower, I can throw more plates down until it's as low as I want it to go. So it's an isometric. You don't need any weight on the bar, but again, it's very difficult to tell with an isometric if you're making any progress. You're just pulling as hard as you can every time. The bar is empty, and so you don't really get to see week over week over week if you're getting stronger with an isometric pull. Granted, you can see if your deadlift numbers in this example are going up or not, but how do you really see if at the bottom position for the specific movement you're making progress while you're just doing the exercise outside of doing just deadlifts with straight weight? So one way you could do that, as an example, is you can load the bar. So you can load the bar with whatever weight you want, depending on how strong you are, of course. Say you put on 80% of your deadlift max, and then now you're doing holds for max time at a specific height. So I could be here, I get set up, I pull all the way up into the pins, and then now at the pins, I'm just trying to keep the bar pressed into the pins for as long as I can. And then as I approach failure, it'll start to go down. And then once the bar breaks from the pins, the set is over. I go, I rest for 3 minutes or however long I want my rest interval to be, and then I do my next set. And so that's a way where you can see what kind of progressive resistance, you can see with progressive resistance how much progress you're making week over week over week, because you can see that you had 200 kilos on the bar and you did 5 sets of 5 seconds or whatever it is, and then every week now you can try and do 5 sets of 6 seconds or 6 sets of 5 seconds. You can add volume and see quantitatively if you're making any progress. One other thing that I like to do when I'm doing isometrics, especially if I'm just doing the bar and I'm not trying to have, like I said before, 200 kilos for 5 sets of 5 seconds or whatever it is, if I'm just using the bar and I'm trying to do holds that are 5 to 10 seconds long, I try to do a little bit of a different variation on every set. And so I can have kind of my normal deadlift stance and my normal deadlift grip, whatever that happens to be, but there's no reason that I can't, just like you would do a snatch grip deadlift, you're just doing a deadlift with a wide grip. There's no reason you can't do a series of different grips, a series of different stances. We tend to think of conventional deadlift and sumo deadlifting. All we're doing is changing our foot position, changing our hand position, and then we rename the movement to a slight variation so we know what we're talking about. But really, you can put your feet and your hands anywhere on the bar, so you have many different variations therein. I can try and do a super narrow stance if I want to. I can put my heels together, kind of like a frog stance like you see in weightlifting, and I can pull from here if I wanted to. Just pull like that. that's kind of I wouldn't call it all the way ridiculous, but that's an extreme example of one variation you could do. There's no reason that you can't do all kinds of different variations and be strong in every position, especially if you're someone that's more of kind of a general athlete, you're training for general fitness, you just want to be strong all around, you're a CrossFit athlete and you're trying to be strong in many different ways, you're not siloed to, squat, dead, and bench using whatever the best the best technique you can to lift the most weight happens to be, where you're only gonna put your hands in one spot, and you're only gonna put your feet in one spot if you're trying to hit a max PR. Conjugate is very friendly to many variations, so you could say that this is conjugate-ish, at least regarding constant variation. So I think there's a lot to play with there. You could also, again, like I said before, you could play with the different heights at which you're pulling the bar, and this is just for deadlifts. You could also do this with any other big movement that you want to. You could do this with front squats and back squats and bench press, and you could probably you could do with pull-ups or whatever you want to. Isometrics are a tool. Whenever the bar speed is very slow, the forces tend to go up. If bar speed goes up, the forces tend to go down. And there are many good reasons to have a fast bar speed, many good reasons to have a slower bar speed. In this case, the bar's not moving at all, so you have the opportunity to have very high forces on the bar, and in my opinion, to be able to do that in a very safe way, where when you're doing isometrics, even in a low position, I can figure out what's the lowest position I can go where I'm in a perfect deadlift position before I have to have my knees dive in, or I have to round my back to get any lower, or I have to kind of shift my hips forward, or whatever compensation you need to do to go lower. You don't do the compensation. You find out the lowest position that you can go where you're in perfect position, and then from there, there's no reason that, especially again if I have the weights off the bar and it's just the bar, there's no reason I can't just set up in a perfect position and then just pull as hard as I can in a perfect position. There's no opportunity to pull myself into a round position. There's no such thing with bad technique in an isometric, especially if you're doing the early version that I showed where you have an empty barbell. You just put yourself in a perfect position, you press or pull as hard as you can, you don't move at all, and then you get stronger right at those very specific joint angles. And if you have weaknesses at very specific joint angles, then I think isometrics are a very simple, easy way to get stronger in those very specific positions without really beating yourself up at all. It's not going to beat up your joints too much. It's not going to make you sore. You really won't even be that fatigued afterward in some cases, compared to doing heavy 5 sets of 5 or other things that make you more tired for the long haul for the next 2, 3, 4 days. Obviously, this is not a replacement for doing the rest of your training. It's just one very simple tool that you can add in for very specific reasons. If you're trying to work on a weakness at a very specific joint angle, it's not going to cause you to grow very much. It doesn't cause very much muscle damage, so you're not going to, even though you can get a little stronger in those positions, you're not likely to put on a whole lot of muscle mass by just using more and more and more isometrics. If you want to get bigger and stronger and actually grow muscle mass, then of course you need to do the concentric and especially the eccentric phase of the lift to get some amount of muscular tension at all the joint angles, and then get some amount of muscular damage, recover, grow, etc. But isometrics aren't going to do that in and of themselves. So don't overuse them. Only use them for a very specific reason if you happen to need to improve strength at a very specific joint angle. So give those a shot. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Instagram at Shrugged Collective. I'm Douglas E. Larson on Instagram. That man right there, that's Sanders Varner on the phone. That Communicating with the people. Right on. See you next time.